Welcome to the Saved and Sealed podcast. Today I have an awesome guest. Camryn Freiberg is a former church worker and minister that is now a full-time wedding photographer. She grew up an athlete all her life, even playing college sports, so it's been fun to see her natural drive and competitive spirit spill into her business. She is someone who has very strong desires and hopes and dreams, so it has been a challenge to walk with Jesus when you don't get the things you want or hoped for so desperately. She recently made a big girl move from Texas to California and has loved every minute of it. Thanks for joining me, Camryn.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. I love California. It's so
Yes,
fun.
it's so beautiful. So I had first saw your stuff online, just like your photos and stuff, but the reason why I was introduced to you is because I had saw you shared your story really boldly. And I was like, I was kind of wanting to get mine in some sort of film as well. And so I was really like, first of all, super inspired by it. But then I had saw that you do photography and I'm like, that's so fun. Like, I wonder how I would love to get into how you kind of started that as well. But also saw that your photos have made it in some pretty cool magazines or news
Yeah.
outlets. So I would love to hear your story and kind of how you got into photography.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say that, yeah, my time working in the church world and then what I do now with full-time wedding photography, they are like super
Mhm.
intertwined, and I wouldn't have gotten to wedding photography if it wasn't for my time working in church. So, yeah, it's a story for sure. But yeah, I thought I was going to be a college minister like my whole life. That was kind of like my highest dream and hope, and I just didn't really have any other dreams for my life. I think anything I thought was cool kind of paled in comparison to like leading people to Jesus and that sort of thing. And yeah, when I was 25, I got like my dream job working as a college minister, and which was like, the actual ministry I got to do with students was a dream come true. And then just like faced some hardship as I started my job, when I was kind of put under a like more predatory pastor that kind of just became kind of like obsessed with me and everything that I did. And yeah, just navigating that for the first time. I feel like in church, people you're told to believe the best about people and assume the best. And so anytime I felt like my boss and pastor was things felt off or weird to me, I kind of just would make excuses like, oh, like he's like that with everyone. Like you're overthinking it. You're totally fine. Like it's nothing
Mhm.
against you. And then, yeah, he just kept trying to make like advances towards me, like sexually, and kept trying to get me alone. And yeah, it's just a really difficult place to be in when it's like, okay, I'm in my dream job. Like just focus on the
Mhm.
ministry. Like this aspect is like, just, you don't want to like this, everyone loves this person. You don't want to be the person that causes any trouble. And I think just like as a peacemaker at heart, I just had really learned
Mhm.
to like separate conflict and just focus on making people happy. And so that was kind of what I tried to do. Um, and yeah, and I had never heard of this sort of thing happening before, where a pastor like would kind of like take a liking to their like
Mhm.
somebody under their care. Obviously you would hope to be able to trust somebody fully in that position and that authority, especially somebody who, is married and is supposed to be a family guy. And so I think that was just a really hard thing for me to navigate. And that lasted for about 8 or 9, or maybe it was probably like, let's see, I got on staff in the summer and I think I ended in February. So that whole time I was kind of fighting like advances and trying to figure out what to do, and being like, oh my gosh, my pastor just told me he's in love with me. This is something that I'm very confused by. I mean, I have been single my whole life up until recently, which is like a new a new thing. But up until that point, I'd never had a boyfriend or anything. And so just like it's like being pursued and like someone telling you that, they care so much about you, but it's like not a right situation. I think it just like felt like this. And again, all while trying to like on the side, like lead people to Jesus, like walk in purity, this whole thing. And but I just was like, okay, I have to keep this silent. I have to keep this to myself because the greater good is at stake, which is leading people to Jesus. And if people hear about this, they're going to be led away from Jesus. So I actually have to like keep quiet about this, and struggle like in silence, and just keep the main thing, I guess, which was in hindsight not the right move, but I try to remind myself, I did the best I could with the tools I had in my tool belt at the time. And so kind of as my time at the church ended and this, like inappropriate conduct with my boss and pastor, which I would learn later is called adult clergy abuse. And it's like actually way more common than I realized. I've met so many women who like the exact same story happened with them, like the exact same authority position, the exact same age gap, which like mine was 13 years with my pastor. And I was like mind blown. But so kind of as that started to end and come to light, I was like, well, there goes my hopes and dreams for ministry. There goes my hopes and dreams for marriage. Like, who would want to partner with somebody who like, has this messy situation, and has been through like something like as dark as this, because I was like, I was like being violated sexually, and just, I'm like, this is not fun. This is not a fun story to carry. And so I was like, perfect. Like my two highest dreams in life, marriage and ministry, have been taken out with like one single blow. And I mean, I was completely like desperate, destitute, and had like no hope. And the way that people treated me after was like super shocking. I was like, felt like I was stiff armed by so many people, and people made a lot of assumptions. And I was like, this doesn't feel like how God is dealing with me. Luckily for me, I had read a lot of the Bible. And so I knew like how Jesus deals with uh, people who have had sin done to them and people who participate in sin, which is like Jesus welcomes us with open arms. He like welcomes us to have a seat at his table, regardless of your story. And so I was kind of always at odds with like, man, the way that people are treating me is not how I feel like Jesus is interacting with me. And so luckily for me, I didn't have to like put what people were doing on Jesus and be like, oh, that must be how Jesus thinks about me. I was able to kind of separate the two. But from there, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Like, my life is in a bunch of scattered pieces. Like, I have like, for the first time, a reputation that is not stellar. People are believing all the things that they want to believe, and no one's coming to me to ask about like what happened. And so I just was like, God, what do I do with my life? And I chose to stay in the same city where this like all burned for like 2.5, 3 years after. Most people were like, oh, I would have gotten the heck out of town. Like, I can't believe you stayed in the same, like, because I was in a very small city. So this wasn't like, like being in like Dallas, Texas, or like Los Angeles, where there's like a million people. I was in a teeny tiny town where everyone knows each other and everyone knows each other's business. And so, yeah, I stayed there, and God kind of showed me like a new path. And yeah, again, I was like, God, what am I supposed to do with my life? I thought I was going to work in a church forever. Now I have no desire to work in the church. And I thought that that was like my best and highest skill. And I felt like God reminded me that like, oh, you like photography. And I was like, my conversation with God was, you know, creatives can't make money. Creatives don't make money. So how, like, that's great that you made me to enjoy photography, but that's not a big girl job. And around the time I had gotten a job at Baylor University, right after everything happened, just as a time to like heal and kind of find my footing again. And then after that, I after that I was able to like get invited to do more wedding photography stuff. I'd never done a wedding, but I had done some photography stuff. But I was super scared. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You're self-taught. Like, you can't say yes to these people. And anytime I even wanted to remotely say yes to helping people with weddings, something with my other job would come up. And so I felt like
Mhm.
God had told me I had been at the Baylor University job for about a year, and I felt like God told me to prepare to go full-time photography. But I thought maybe in like 2 years. And it was like 2 months later that I got let go from
Wow.
that job. And luckily for me, I had like already started putting some things in place. I had like just started taking it more seriously, posting a lot more on Instagram. I'd done a few giveaways, like to hopefully get more traction to my page. And then God was like, oh, there it is. Like, here you go. And I was like,
Mhm.
God, I don't know what I'm doing. And then in light of what everything I went through at the church, I felt like God told me, not only am I going to get burned, I'm also
Mhm.
like the season you just went through is going to be like that was the hardest. Like it's
Mhm.
gonna be like you have to trust me with freelance. Like it's not gonna be any harder than that. Like I just carried you through the darkest
Mhm.
season of your life. Is freelance really gonna be that hard? And I was like, okay, God, like
Okay.
I guess we'll go for it.
Yeah.
And so that kind of started my photography journey. And I like literally overnight like got an LLC. Just was like, here goes nothing. Somebody at my new church that I had gone to was like, we're getting married, and it's like 10 people in a backyard, and we have a couple $100s to pay you. And I was like, awesome.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what led into my photography journey is God. I was kind of had nothing else to do and nowhere else to turn. And it's been cool because God has it was such a dark season of my life over here, and then God transitioned me into a place where I get to like be constantly celebrating people, and I'm like constantly at the like happiest time of people's life. And so I feel like not only did he like give me my footing for weddings, but he actually like literally placed me in a physical place of joy because I was like
Yeah.
crying myself to sleep for every night for 6 months prior, so it was a cool transition.
Sure. That's one thing I was going to ask is how do you see God in photography? Because you mentioned like getting to celebrate people and their major life events, which is amazing. And I do just want to make the comment that your photography is so creative and well done. So for saying that you didn't know what you were doing, you are great at it. I just have to say that. Um, how do you see God in whether it's the photography, the people you meet?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think something I really had to overcome, like coming out of only like working in church, and I mean, I'm still obviously following Jesus. I still love church, but I just have had a lot of views that have changed. And I think the biggest thing for me that shifted coming off of staff at a church is like how legalistic I was about things. I just saw things as very black and white, and obviously there are parts of the Bible that are very black and white, but
Sure.
99% of the Christian life is like so nuanced, like walking with God, like, like let's say drinking, like maybe like a glass of wine might feel like that's not okay for someone in their walk with God, but like 2 glasses of wine might be okay for the next person, but I was like, I had a one right answer for everything. And I think like as I started to come off church and like really or again working for church and starting to get to know people's stories more, I just was like, wow, like people are super complex, and like everyone has a unique story, and you can't just like slap a label like on people, and people deserve to like be known and have their full story known as well, like regardless of kind of like where they come from or what they've done. And I think coming to photography, I never wanted to do it. I actually had a friend years ago tell me she was starting her business, and I was like, that's awesome for you, but like this is a really like oversaturated market. Like I would never do something like that. Because I thought like there was only one right way to do everything. And so photography, like why would there be like 20 photographers in one city? Like just pick one. And so I think coming into photography, I realized like, oh wow, I can't do every wedding is so different, and every person's like what they think is beautiful or what they think design wise is cool. Like everyone has their own opinion on that, and there's not one right thing. And so I think for me, just like being open of like, it's okay if your picture like is a little tilted or is a little is a little off. Like there's not a perfect scenario. And I think for me, that was super freeing. And photography was like, man, I get to actually do whatever like me and the Lord think is cool. Like I don't have to like look like how my neighbor looks. I don't have to photograph how my neighbor photographs. And I'm ultimately there to just like reflect the personality and story of the couple. And so I think just being like, wow, I could do a million different things here. I think that was just, again, very freeing for me to know like, oh, there's not just one right way to go about this. And so for me, that was probably the most beautiful part of the photography journey so far.
That's awesome. Um, what would you say to the person that wants to do something big like that? Like you said, the strong desires, hopes, and dreams, they have that and they want to do something big, but they're like, how will God use that? I'm not fit for that. I don't know if I can do that. What would you say to that person?
I've always just been a like, why not you person? Like to the point where
Mhm.
there really does have to be a little bit of like delusion involved. But yeah, I would say like, why not you? Whatever it is that you want to do, like, and there may be some dreams that are unrealistic, but we learn so much in the trying, and obviously I was like lucky enough to succeed kind of at my first like go for it, but just if I would have gone for it and I would have hit some like roadblocks along the way, that doesn't mean like you made the wrong decision. And again, like the walk with God is so nuanced, and you have to kind of depend on him for like every next step. And so just because you hit a wall or a failure or like some resistance doesn't necessarily mean you made the wrong decision. And so I would just encourage anyone who like has a next step or a jump that they want to make to be like, there's this quote that I like that says nobody was remembered for what they almost did. And I think we like so many people could look back on their life and be like, oh, that was a fun dream I had, that was a fun like idea that I had. And I think like God's people should be people of action, and he's made us all so uniquely. And so I think just like really take confidence and pride and power in the fact that like, wow, I have a mind and thoughts that like my person next to me will not think of. And so like what am I going to do with these like ideas and dreams that God has put on my heart, because you never know like what could happen. And there's just so much joy like in the process as well. It's not, again, it doesn't have to be this super successful thing for you to have joy in it as well. I think there's like joy in the journey of trying and failing. So
Yeah, that's so good. I, like I had said, saw that some of your photos have made it in some pretty cool platforms. Like I think I saw Forbes Photo. Talk about
there's
that.
been
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a few different ones. I had probably the most prominent one that people, if watching this, would know is like People Magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that'll be really fun, or that has been really fun. I think it was like a couple years ago. I really like the reality TV show Love Is Blind, and again, like I'm just like a person of action, so I'm like,
Mhm.
you go for it, ask
Yeah.
people, like you never know like what'll happen. And so I had messaged on Instagram one of the girls on the show and they got engaged. It's like, I don't know, like, let me know if you guys ever need photos or anything. And she was like,
Mhm.
yeah, sure. And nothing came from it. And then, I don't know, maybe like 6, 7 months later, they were celebrating an anniversary, or I guess it would have been longer than that. But anyway, they were celebrating like an anniversary of sorts in Texas. And they reached back out to me because she had remembered that I had kind of threw my name in the hat. And then we did some pictures at like a little like Airbnb they were staying in, and I thought it was just like for them and their personal use. And then she texted me like the next morning like, oh, like I have a surprise for you. And I was like, oh, like what is it? And then she was like, yeah, like these are gonna be in like People Magazine. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool, like
Awesome.
nothing I could have planned. And yeah, and I have a few more of those types of things that are coming up in this next year as well that I'm looking forward to. And I
Whoa.
always say like God is in like in the algorithm, he's like in the connecting business. And so I
Mhm.
just think it's so fun that God connects us like with the people that he does. And obviously that part of that is me putting myself out there.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so that was a fun surprise that I did not expect.
That's awesome. And kind of like you said, we kind of, as entrepreneurs and big dreamers, we kind of have to shoot our shot. So even just asking, like you said, you just shot her a DM, like ask because you never know what could unfold like from you just asking. It could be a no and don't be defeated by that, but if it's a yes, way to open the door. Um, I would love to ask you to kind of close. Do you have any scripture on your heart? Anything that you would like to share, encouragement, something that has been on your mind or in your heart recently?
Yes, so many. Um, yeah, I think one of the verses that comes to mind, it says like, "For I know that it is not for man to determine his steps." And so I feel like that's kind of the tension that I feel again while trying to talk about being a person of action, because to me, in my head, being a person of action means you play the next 10, 20 steps, and that's like how you're going to get where you're going. But then when I look
Mhm.
at scripture and like this reliance on God for the next steps, like God's like, it is not for man to determine his steps. And so it's like, okay, how do I live as a person of action? And then how do I not plan my life out completely, you know? And so I think that would just be my encouragement, is to like learn what it looks like to wrestle with those two truths. Like it's not one or the other, it's both. But I think the best place to start for that is like an intimacy with Jesus, and that comes from reading the scriptures, and that comes from like a personal, like literal quiet time where it's just you and your Bible and maybe like a pen, and in a quiet space where you can kind of shut off the noise. I think if you can't start there, then you're probably not going to have any luck at learning to work with those two ideas. And so yeah, I think that my encouragement would be to just get alone with God and make him your primary source, and not, there's all these external things that are good, like commentaries or podcasts or
Mhm.
worship music or attending your church's event or conference, but none of those are going to like ultimately be like your north star. Like your north star is like where your intimacy with Jesus starts. And so I would just say like really protect that time each and every day so that you can learn how to be a person of action, but also not be a like total control like freak about your life. So
Mhm. Absolutely. Cameron, thank you for sharing your story so boldly, especially about the really hard parts, and also just getting us into your creative journey. You have a talent for it, and I can't wait to see what's coming next.
thank you so much. It was so fun.